Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Annual Design Awards. Thank you. It is a real pleasure to be back here at the ACEC and WisDOT Transportation Improvement Conference. I'm especially pleased that we get to be in prime time tonight, huh? Two-day conference, talking over dinner. When I first got the big news, I immediately replied, I'm going to need an orchestra. I didn't hear back from Kurt and the crew, but what are you going to do? I'm Dan Tyler. I work in the Bureau of Project Development. It's my pleasure to be your host now for the 13th year. When I reflected on that, I thought, what projects were there when I first presented the awards? You probably drove through one on your way up. Strand and US 12 was a winner 13 years ago. Our presentation tonight, the purpose is twofold: to recognize the hard-working people, the teams who've created these projects, and to share some of these far-reaching and really quite different projects from all around the state. Another good field this year, we had 27 nominees. That's tied with last year. We know from the employee survey that recognition is really important to people. This is just one way, and it's encouraging that you are putting your best foot forward to nominate your projects. Thank you very much to the judges who volunteered their time to review the nominations and judge them based on our published criteria. Thanks especially to Greg, Diego, and Nick, who were all new judges this year. Thank you. The only drawback with the judges this year, I happened to have 8, somewhat accidentally, and we'll see how that shook out. The criteria for the contest, it's aligned with the department's priorities. We've looked again and again at these criteria year over year so that it's not just big projects that can win these awards. It's projects that find problems, they clearly identify problems, and find efficient ways to solve them. So whether you're taking home hardware today or not, you took the time to nominate your project, and so I'm pleased to be here to share it with the world. Okay, would the presenters please join me on the stage? We have Todd Matheson and Rebecca Burkle from the DTSD Administrator's Office, and Deputy Secretary Scott Lowry. So thanks to the presenters. Great support today also. Thank you, Allie Mission, for taking photos. Dan Arneson, thanks for managing tonight's live webcast. A special welcome to all of you who are joining at home. Hi, Mom and Dad. Dion. Are there more than 3? All right, good. Well, who's ready to have a tour of Wisconsin's finest, shall we? Okay, our first category tonight, 4 nominees were in the Best Rural Design by WisDOT. Okay, here comes the text. The North Central region nominated State Trunk 155 in and around St. Germain, a scenic route symbolizing northern Wisconsin's beauty with rolling hills and natural waterways and sprawling forest. That is a quote from their nomination, thanks to Andy Casper and Stacy Hagenbutcher. At its heart, this is a resurfacing project, but it also addressed a few specific problems, including flooding with right-of-way less than 15 feet from the shoulders. They used culverts and infiltration trenches to manage the water. The town of Sainer contributed to shoulder widening, which will give people a place to walk. The second nominee is a 6-mile project on I-43 in Waukesha County, sent in by Evan Limberatos and his team at Southeast Region. It was straightforward perpetuation, but the judges appreciated how each element was explained, each element had its purpose. Safety elements like new roadside hardware and a high-friction surface treatment were included, as well as updates to a park and ride and curb ramps. One thing that I thought was cool was specifying micro-milling for a portion of the shoulders so that when traffic was shifted onto them, it rode better and made less noise. Third, I'd like to share the Southwest region's State Trunk 58 project near Laval. The main goal of the project, like many, was to extend the service life of the pavement. But the village of Laval had suffered from flooding in 2018, leaving roads damaged and sidewalks disconnected. The project restored connectivity in 3 different small communities. The traffic control was designed for half at a time with temp signals to avoid a long and arduous detour. So thanks especially to PM David Schmidt and PL Anthony Johnson for your work on this project. The fourth nominee is the Northeast Region's project on State Trunk 15 and 76 in New London. It expanded 2.8 miles of rural principal arterial and caught the judge's eyes with safety improvements, access coordination, and tight bids. Well, come on down, Alan Farrell and Bill Bertrand. You are this year's first winners. Rural by WisDOT. One of the things we really want to hear about in the Design Award nomination is, what problems did you solve? And what alternatives did you consider? And while some people still really want to write no build, resurface, reconstruct, here's a good example of the kind of specific thing that we're looking for. The State Trunk 15 and US 45 intersection. If you see in the picture, the building in the upper left, that's a Ford dealership on the corner. They used to have 2 access points that created frequent conflicts. And so the design team here met with the owners, developed a solution that utilized an adjacent WisDOT-owned parcel to place a new local road that access could come off of. There were similar efforts with a concrete production facility and a landscaping nursery and other neighbors, balancing access and highway safety. In the end, 14 out of 45 driveways were able to be removed, which is expected to reduce the higher than average crash rate. The design team also worked through railroad coordination, rock excavation, and more on this $15 million project. Congratulations, Northeast Region. All right, our next category is Best Rural Design by a Consultant. Let's head over to the consultant side of the house and look at 4 more exemplary projects. Northeast Region nominated their US 10 passing lane project in Manitowoc County. This was a $3.4 million project on about 4 miles of a major US highway, carrying 22% trucks, but usually only needing 2 lanes. It implements a portion of the statewide plan for designated passing lane corridors. Overall, the scheme is an efficient way to add capacity without extra rebuilding. One specific decision was to collect rock data. Minimizing impacts to rock helped the project avoid an estimated $500,000 of cost. Well done, Stephanie Christensen from EMCS and Brian Hain from WisDOT. The next project had been in the works for 20 years before Valbon Latifi from Bloom and Robert Bellin from WisDOT brought it to fruition. I'm not pointing any fingers, guys. I hear chuckling up front. That's how it goes sometimes. It's Highway 83 between Waterford and Mukwonago in the Southeast Region. 3 intersections and 1 horizontal curve were reconstructed, and the rest was resurfaced, focusing the work on areas with crash problems. One example was the Honey Creek intersection. It was moved 950 feet to the south, the driveway opening was provided to the new alignment, and new beam guard was placed at the old intersection to delineate and reduce impacts to the farmer's property. Strand and the Southwest Region nominated the intersection of US 51 and County AB in the town of Dunn. This intersection received HISSUP funding on account of its high crash rate and was rebuilt from a 2-way stop to a single-lane roundabout. The $3.3 million project attracted 7 bidders, the lowest of which were less than $20,000 apart. Thanks to Kyle Henderson from Strand and Jenny Coburn from WisDOT for this nomination. Finally, we have the North Central Region's nomination, State Trunk 29 in Shawano County. This new J-turn configuration specifically targets an ongoing trend of severe crashes while staying consistent with the long-term vision to convert 29 to a freeway. Well, ladies and gentlemen, come on down. Eric Olson from EMCS, Kai Keelan, and Evan Maves from North Central Region. You're the winners. Evan, come on down. There's a number of great things to highlight about this project. It was driven by safety first and foremost. State Trunk 29, it's an important arterial with 27% trucks. County Triple M is a connection to the city of Shawano. It used to come in at a 63-degree skew. 4 at-grade alternatives were developed. They were also presented in the nomination in a convenient chart. Although not warranted at this time, an interchange concept was developed to show and talk with the public about. The J-turn, it maintains access, reduces conflict points, and does not preclude those future alternatives. 2 details I'd like to note quick. Offset right turn lanes were evaluated, but were not included because the volumes were low, and this wasn't part of the problem. So the decision to not include this work reduced impact and saved us about $250,000. And then finally, just a little detail here. Many of you have seen this already, but in case you haven't, with an intersection like this, even though it's rural, you might expect some people to walk or bike along the minor road. So the design includes these little cut-throughs in the medians, which are a really low-cost way to avoid creating a new barrier with our project. Congratulations to the State Trunk 29 design team. All right, let's have a look at urban projects. Urban project designed by WisDOT was the smallest category this year, so let's have a look at these nominees. Southwest Region and Joshua Kaepernick nominated State Trunk 23 in Sauk County. It's a prominent corridor to the vibrant tourism destination of Spring Green and the only way to access a local industrial park. It's mostly mill and overlay with some reconstruction, including the Madison Street intersection. The nomination reports on cost savings from building this intersection under a full closure. The second nomination comes from the Southeast Region, a complex 1.4-mile interstate reconstruction of I-43 north of Milwaukee. Come on down, Dave Pittman and Roberto Gutierrez. You're this year's winners. This project most notably removed an old bridge above the abandoned Union Refrigerator Transit Company rail yard and replaced it with a lowered section of roadway between 2 retaining walls. They analyzed many components, including profile, ramps, bridges, and more. Removing an old 1,500-foot bridge will certainly reduce ongoing maintenance. I remember this project from our value engineering study back in 2019, which yielded about $6 million in cost avoidance. Although I wonder why you guys didn't put that in your nomination, but nevertheless, a proposed alignment shift meant acquiring and moving 2 cell towers. I thought this was interesting. A cell on wheels device was used during construction to maintain that service. A portion of a cemetery was acquired, which included hiring an archaeologist and some design adjustments. And then finally, as you might expect in an urban area, popular trails cross this area as well. So with the removal of the bridge came a new barrier, mitigated with a new culvert that will serve as a trail underpass when the trail is built along that old rail line. Congratulations, Dave and Bob and your team. Our next category is Best Urban Design by a Consultant. We have 4 strong projects in this category. Let's have a look. We'll kick it off with North Central Region, where State Trunk 80 was the nomination in Babcock. In this nomination, Jim Wendels calls the project small but mighty, and he's right. Along with WisDOT PM Preston Bone, Quest delivered a project that realigned a 10-mile-an-hour curve in this small town while resurfacing 5 miles of rural highway. Before the project, there were no crosswalks across State Trunk 80 and no pedestrian access to the post office or town hall. The judges appreciated the discussion on sub-alternatives and elements of performance-based practical design throughout. And the second nominee is State Trunk 33 in Baraboo, sent by Brett Peterson at OES and Greg Brecka of the Southwest region. In the course of this pavement replacement project, the lanes were reconfigured from 4 to 3, a classic road diet that's expected to reduce crashes while maintaining or even improving access with a good level of service. The urban setting included 150 new curb ramps. As you know, probably the strongest thing about a road diet is all its safety benefit for cars and pedestrians within the existing footprint. Our next nominee comes from the Southeast region, the I-43 County Line Road interchange. It also includes a road diet and box culvert work, strategic staging, and complex geometry. And it's this year's winner. Come on down. Ryan Yankee from HNTB, Gary Ferguson from Jacobs, Steve Hoff, David Wen from WisDOT. And of course, if you're in the audience tonight and I call some names and you belong up here on the stage, of course, please come on up. If I did not call your project, please refrain. This design on I-43 on the north-south, it looked at numerous interchange alternatives driven in large part by FHWA's requirement for a full access interchange. The existing I-43 alignment under County Line Road had a substandard 60-mile-an-hour compound curve, which was improved to 75. Safety improvements were made for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic, including a new shared use path in coordination with the locals. Environmental impacts were mitigated with incorporating measures such as stormwater management, reducing impacts on wetlands and 4F properties. Finally, a reconfiguration on the local Port Washington Road is expected to better serve the community and promote accessibility. Congratulations to the I-43 team. But wait, if you're keeping track at home, I've announced a winner, but only 3 out of the 4 nominees. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time I've ever been a part of, the judges went round and round, and we concluded it's a tie. The Northeast region, State Trunk 54 in the city of Seymour is also the winner, so come on down, Kevin Kulo and Troy Robillard from Ayers, Jesse Hansen and Tammy Rabe from WisDOT. Come on down, Northeast region. Be recruiting one more judge next year. No, all joking aside, this is a great project. Thanks for coming down. I also learned that senior designer Phil Verville unfortunately isn't here because of a recent injury, so get well soon, Phil. This project is notable because it constructed the first and the second compact roundabouts on the state highway system in Wisconsin. Just look at these beauties. It was I think the project also included some resurfacing too, but the nomination didn't really expand on it, probably because they were so excited about the roundabouts. As you can see, this is quite a constrained area, and yet the 2 intersections had a lot of crash problems and problems with the level of service. These compact roundabouts are expected to reduce crashes and improve the operation while minimizing business impacts. You can also see that trucks are running through them just fine. Pedestrians will benefit from the new sidewalks. And finally, I saw on the sign that Seymour is the home of the hamburger. I had no idea. Did you know this? I confirmed this with Google, and ChatGPT thinks it's New Haven, but did agree that Seymour has a legitimate claim. So either way, head on over to Seymour, see it for yourself, and if you miss it, just U-turn in the new roundabout. Congratulations. Bureau of Structures and friends who love structures, Get ready, because here come the bridges. First, by WisDOT, we have 4 nominees in the Best Structure by WisDOT category. First, Northeast Region nominated this new culvert under State Trunk 172 in Brown County. It's a great example of perhaps the most important key to success in a structure project: good collaboration between the Bureau and the region. The existing steel plate pipe arch was rusted out with some areas of 100% section loss. A bridge and a box were analyzed, considering poor soils and utilities. Partnering with the Oneida Nation was another key to success. Finally, when the contractor proposed to precast the culvert, BOS Fabrication Unit quickly reviewed and accepted the proposal, reducing construction and detour time. Thanks especially kudos to Joshua Lang and Isatu Cisse. Northwest Region also replaced an old twin steel culvert with this new bridge on a beautiful remote stretch of State Trunk 70 through the Flambeau River State Forest. The design focused both on the traffic up above and the stream down below, which was prone to debris buildup. The new robust bridge is expected to improve fish passage and have minimal maintenance issues over the next 75+ years. It was also designed for constructability, carefully placing the girders, joints, and reinforcement. We recognize Matthew Dickinson and Ian Linloff and their teams for this nomination. Our next project garnered several votes from the judges for its structural accomplishment. This 350-foot span over the Milwaukee River, right next to the I-43 URT project that just took home the Best Urban Design project. They're right next to each other. The bedrock is shallow here in the Milwaukee riverbed, so this bridge uses hammerhead piers on spread foundation keyed directly into the bedrock. Piles were pre-bored into rock with modified A3 expansion abutments and non-standard pile analysis. You already met Dave Pittman, and let's also acknowledge Max Kulik from BOS for his work on this project. Our final contestant is the new County AB Bridge over US 12 on the east side of Madison in Dane County. Would you please come on down, Dominique Beckley and Kyle Bush from the Bureau of Structures. Derek Potter from the Southwest region, he was the PM. I don't believe Derek's here tonight. If you're watching the video, nice job, Derek. This is part of a whole new interchange with roundabouts and access updates expected to be a major safety improvement. But this category is about the structure itself. There are 2 MSC walls at the abutments and 10 sign structures here, along with the 2-span concrete girder bridge. Some of its features include raised sidewalk, median and shared use path, lighting, conduit, and aesthetic treatments to match the corridor. I'll mention briefly a few structural complexities here. Non-standard details were needed to address pile uplift demands in the exterior column footings. There was curved geometry in the structural approach slabs. Special pier pedestal designs and details were needed for the full span overhead sign structure. Hopefully all the structure engineers in the house are very pleased to hear about all these details. US 12 remained open throughout except for a few nighttime closures. If you find yourself down in the area, check it out. Great work, Southwest Region and Bureau of Structures. Congratulations. Next, we'll go over to the consultant side of the house and look at 4 more fine structures. Many of the judges ranked all 4 of these very close to each other. I was speaking with somebody just before the presentation as well, just how hard it is to convey how much it's appreciated to judge all of these nominees. And in many cases, they end up really very close. So, of course, we pick 1, maybe 2 sometimes, but you know, there's got to be a winner in the end. But I really want to highlight each of these nominees because they really do have a lot going for them. In a lot of cases, these are really, really difficult to pick that winner. In this category, the Northeast region nominated one of the first structures on on the I-41 major project, the Rose Hill Road overpass. Sarah Grimmie from Strand and Scott Ebel from WisDOT prepared this nomination. The new bridge is a two-span 45W pre-stressed girder structure with a widened deck that includes lanes, shoulders, and sidewalks, and a 208-foot overall length to accommodate the widened I-41 down below. Of note, this design was accelerated about a year when the old bridge was struck and damaged. The next nominee comes from the southeast region, also on I-41 down at the Capitol Drive interchange. This is a rehabilitation of 5 bridges in an urban environment, specifically a 3-level service interchange. It required a complex traffic staging plan to minimize impacts. The structural complexity here really comes from all the varying amounts of partial removals and rehabs. For instance, thermal deck scans detected areas of debonding and delamination. Access for full deck replacement utilized safe span false work. Thanks to Pat Cashin at HNTB, Clayton Smith from WisDOT for nominating this fine project. North Central Region nominated their bridge replacement on County O in Marathon County, right through the George W. Meade Wildlife Area. Their mission was to replace the old bridge and minimize disruptions to the road and popular recreation area. Major alternatives weighed girder versus slabs. The slab was primarily selected based on buoyancy, resistance to debris impact, and navigational clearance. Along the bank is an area for our non-human neighbors to pass under the highway as well. Thanks to James Rowe Drungalis from AECOM and Mike Grage from WisDOT for this nomination. And that brings us to the final nominee in this category, a structure that hopefully you're not sick of hearing about for all the attention that it's gotten recently, but maybe you've noticed that this really is something quite special. I think we have a large group of people here to receive this little plaque, so we'll see how it works on the stage. I have some copy, we'll see what we can do. So won't you please come on down. Greg Brecker from WisDOT, Roland Hoslett from EXP, Don DeMars, Brian Jensko, Dan Schrum, Jeff Knudsen, Rachel Burnham, and Tim Borowski from SRF. That's it, the 130 Lone Rock Bridge. What a crew. If we can do it on the stage, we will. Otherwise, we'll stage the photo later on. Let's see how it works. Meanwhile, I'll tell all of you a little more about this fine project on 130 in Lone Rock. Out in this area, there aren't many places to cross the Wisconsin River, so this is a really important bridge. The existing steel truss was built in the 1930s, and if you've ever been out there or been on it, you'd know how narrow it was, and low too. Many people also know the results of the rock wall at the end of the bridge, which has tragically been the site of numerous fatal crashes, including suicides. This, combined with interactions with the river channel and many structural alternatives, led to a modern, durable structure on a new alignment. The Riverway Board was a key stakeholder, and the view from the river was as much a part as from the road. The view from the bridge is especially better for truck drivers or non-motorized users who really didn't fit the old bridge at all. Structure-wise, there was finite element modeling, higher strength concrete, and extra bedrock analysis. I brought an extra paragraph just in case here. SRF was the designer in this design-build project, one of the few in recent Wisconsin history. They are proud to claim efficiencies from this method like $2 million and 12 weeks of construction time saved by reducing the number and changing the shape of piers. The project came in at about $37 million. We got it? Congratulations to the Lone Rock team. Beautiful project. So here's our final category for the evening. Best Design in Local Program. This category has really shined since its creation back in 2017. So let's meet this year's contestants. In Northwest region, in the town of Longwood, you'll find a new bridge over a branch of the Black River. Since it was a dead end, traffic control included a temporary structure. The new flat slab design is longer, allowing new abutments to be placed behind the existing ones. Thanks Aaron Palmer from Westbrook and Teresa Davis from WisDOT for this nomination. Northeast Region nominated their West Division Street project in Fond du Lac. It was also this year's Construction Award winner for small structures, so I copied and pasted the description from that ceremony. The new structure is a 2-span slab bridge supported by cast-in-place piling. The west abutment was so close to the rail line that it was tied to the abutment of the adjacent railroad bridge, which sees over 45 trains a day. The existing west abutment was left in place and braced by boring tiebacks under the tracks to support them. So well done, Q Klink from MSA and Jody Jarasinski as the local program project manager on this job from Northeast. From the North Central region comes the nomination for Stewart Avenue. This project, headed up by Stephanie Christensen at EMCS and Mike Grage from WisDOT, transformed an outdated 1.5-mile corridor serving the west side of Wausau. It replaced pavement, added drainage, and replaced outdated signals and municipal utilities while improving facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians too, including paved shoulders, urban paved shoulders, and a multi-use trail. To best fit the context, you'll see urban and combination urban and rural typical sections. Next, from the Southwest region, is the Lake Mendota Drive project. You hardly ever see a project like this when the existing timber bridge was built in 1892 and rebuilt in 1934. This is a low-speed, low-volume area in mature forest in a strong neighborhood committed to its history and beauty. The design team drew several alternatives and following 2 PIMs received a petition with more than 120 signatures favoring a new timber structure for their gateway to the lake. Timber isn't usually selected because of its capital cost, but it's perhaps underappreciated for its durability, especially in Wisconsin's climate, sustainability, and low maintenance needs. From concept to construction, the Lake Mendota Drive project embodies a well-rounded approach to cost-effective design, community responsiveness, and sustainable practices. And well done, Chad Halverson from KL Engineering and Zach Parison from WisDOT. The judges recognized this project with an honorable mention. And now, from the Southeast region comes the West Walnut Street project, a project that went above and beyond a typical road diet to address serious concerns in a community. They did it on schedule and within their budget. Would you please come on down, Greg Haferman from WisDOT, Andre Ost from Grafe, and David Tapia from the city of Milwaukee. You are this year's winners, Best Local Program Design. This is a heavily traveled arterial in Milwaukee, 0.6 miles long, including 9 intersections. When existing pavement and utilities had to be replaced, this team took the opportunity to go after the serious problems of speeding and reckless driving. The KAB crash rate was 70% higher than the statewide average for local streets. The good news is that there are engineering solutions that can influence drivers' behavior. Here, lane reconfiguration was combined with bump outs, signal upgrades, and raised crosswalks. But the cross-section isn't just the travel lanes. The design considered alternatives for the entire right-of-way and how it works for all users. Contributing to Mayor Cavalier Johnson's vision, the project adds new protected bikeways, that is, they're separated from the street, in addition to sidewalks. The reduced pavement footprint will require less ongoing maintenance, as will the low-cost landscaping elements, including grass and street trees. Less pavement also means less stormwater to have to manage. The judges appreciated just how many elements were considered in this real reimagining of an urban corridor. So congratulations to the West Walnut Street team for being this year's winners. Well, and there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Design Awards, 27 nominees and 8 winners. I hope this little tour gave you some inspiration, perhaps some ideas for your own projects. If you reach out to me, I'd be happy to connect you with any of the PMs who you saw today. And to those of you online, thanks very much for joining us. I'm sure you've noticed there's a ton of turnover that's been happening in the industry, so it's as relevant as ever to talk about our best projects. And our worst ones too, I suppose, if I'm honest, but I know it may take extra effort, but it's imperative that those of us with more experience take time to share it with our newer colleagues, and that each of us do our best to listen to what our public is asking from us today. A heartfelt thank you to the judges, and a shout out especially to Nick, who helped me with the presentation, to Andrew from ACEC. It's never too soon to start thinking about which projects you'll nominate for next year. But please, don't wait for an awards program to reach out to someone and tell them you noticed that they did a good job. Because every one of us is working hard. Every one of us indeed has difficulties. Every one of us benefits from some encouragement. So call anytime. Keep up the good work. Have a good night. Thank you.